President Trump won 80% of the white evangelical vote in the 2016 election, and while that support has waned slightly, many still back him. According to a recent CBS News poll, 70% of white evangelicals approve of the job the president is doing. This survey was taken shortly before adult film actress Stormy Daniels sat down for an interview with 60 Minutes. But as the president deals with reports of an alleged affair with Daniels, evangelical leaders are facing sex scandals of their own. Leslie Sanchez is a CBS News political contributor and Republican strategist. She joins me now from Washington. Leslie, thanks for being with us. So at least 4 evangelical leaders recently have been accused of improprieties. Are we seeing the Me Too movement make its way into the evangelical community?
Absolutely. I mean, and many feel, especially in the Christian community, that it's a positive thing, that, you know, there's this kind of, whether it's sexual innuendo, abuse, and any cases where there are these types of victims should be exposed so that they can heal and get to the next level. And that's really what a lot of families that I've been speaking to want to know. They don't like the pain they're going through right now, but they would rather have it out in the open than feel that there's some sense of hypocrisy. They're talking one way, but really not cleaning their own house.
Sure. So does this sort of iteration of the Me Too movement within the evangelical community, is it playing out any differently?
It really isn't. I mean, some would argue that from a conservative perspective, that it really all the shoes have not dropped, that many people are looking the other way. Some of these mega churches, they're going on these pastors to lead in smaller communities. You know, they ask for forgiveness, and they're still, you know, they may resign from big positions, but it's not all there. But some of the victims, some of the women that move forward on the conservative side feel that their voices are not really given that legitimate platform that they should, because of kind of the sensitivity around this issue. So it still is a very sensitive topic, particularly in the evangelical community. And I would say the Catholic community, when they went through this type of thing, it was a painful process too, but really exposing it, bringing it to the light, made the whole situation and the infrastructure stronger.
Right. And now, as we mentioned, the evangelical community overwhelmingly supports President Trump. But are we beginning to see a little bit of a weakening from some of the women in that community, especially over this Me Too movement?
You know, strangely enough, you're not seeing it in the way that I think many on the left would have anticipated. People were looking for that cultural backlash. If that backlash was going to happen, it would have happened with the Billy Bush tapes before the presidential election. And a lot of pastors and a lot of people in the community feel that way. They feel the president has stood strong with his Supreme Court nominees. He stood strong in terms of protecting religious freedoms. And also, they also say that really, where else are they going to go? They may sit out a midterm election, they may sit out of protest, but they really can't see themselves aligning themselves with the Democratic Party.
So even the Stormy Daniels story didn't change that narrative, Leslie?
It does. It doesn't change the narrative because of when it took place. If it was something that had happened in the White House while the president, while Mr. Trump is president, would have changed the dynamic completely. But because these are things that happened prior to either him becoming a born-again Christian or really coming to faith, asking for grace, a lot of people feel, that it's a different conversation, and they've dealt with it before they decided to vote for him for president.
But Leslie, a lot of people outside of the evangelical community look at the situation and they say, here's a group of people that very strongly believes in family values and a strict moral code. How are they so easily able to dismiss all the alleged sexual improprieties that seem to have been, that the president seems to be accused of engaging in? How is it so easy for them to dismiss that?
The interesting part of that is I don't know that it's easy for anybody. I don't think you could ask anybody whether they're in any type of faith community, if it's so simple, they're not flippant about dismissing it. I think a lot of people struggle with that. They look to grace, they look to acceptance, they look to forgiveness, they look to try to hold themselves because everyone is flawed. So it kind of goes into the tenets of Christianity. But that being said, a lot of people will say again, if this is something that had happened while the president was in the White House, it's a different story. It's something that happened many years ago before he really became, as they would argue, a man more focused on faith. And that distinction is extremely important for evangelicals.
So, Leslie, as we head into midterms, then, will we see socially conservative Republicans distancing themselves from the president?
They will if you see a lot of candidates down ballot that do not have the qualifications of really a strong person of integrity that's ready to lead in this country. That's the backlash. It doesn't necessarily affect the president. You see a lot of, for example, suburban white women who are deciding to sit on their hands, state, they may not go and turn out in the numbers they could in November. And a lot of evangelical women as well, unless they're really motivated by those particular candidates. I don't think it's going to be retribution against the president, but it's certainly, they're going to look at the integrity of each of those candidates.
Very, very interesting. All right, Leslie Sanchez in Washington, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.